I just woke up too, so it's like I'm still figuring things out this morning. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Nihilo podcast. Super excited for today's episode, and yeah, let's just let the song roll out, and I'll introduce my guest in a bit. Cool. So, one of not necessarily my intern, but my video editor, she would actually mention you, and I saw some of your stuff, and I thought it was pretty cool. Did you do the one that looks like? I forgot the name of the book. It looks like animation. It's like a character. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was like Where the Wild Things Are. He kind of looks like that. Did you do that one? By Barrio Logan?
No, you're thinking of an artist that you work with. Her name is Michelle, Mr. B Baby, probably. She does a lot of a particular character of hers called Chucho. And
Okay.
he's like he has that look. I don't want to get the colors mixed up, but I think he's like red, white, and blue, right? And I think there's some
I
green
think
in
so.
him.
Yeah.
That's her name's Michelle. She's
Okay.
from here in San Diego though. She's an artist here in San Diego and also in LA. She's that's her classic character. She throws them into a lot of her murals. So I work with like 15 other artists. So
That's a lot of people.
we just introduced her and did a project with her. She's really cool, super down to earth, super cool artist too.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself. You could tell us your name and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Derrick. I'm the founder of Influential Walls. We're a collective of artists that paint murals, and we work with schools and innovative brands.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what were you doing before that? Because I mean, it seems like it's pretty like well built up. Like,
Yeah. I guess so. It's been like 3 years since I've been, I guess in 4 years since I've been in the art game. Then the collective itself has probably built itself out over the last 2 years. But I guess so. Where do you want me to start? You want me to start at like
the
college
beginning, or you were what did you major in? Like, what did you always know you wanted to be like a painter since you were like young and stuff? Or
Okay, so I mean, I've always been into art. I've always drawn and whatnot, but I actually hated painting, and I hated like doing. I told myself I never work on my computer doing any design or anything when I was young, and then just kind of would like draw for fun in class and draw my friends like pieces and whatnot in high school. Then in college, I studied entrepreneurship. I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. I didn't know what it would be in. I was always really big in skateboarding, big in music. So I really like, I play piano. I played drums for a little bit too, a little bit of guitar. So I thought that would be cool to go into. I always just thought that if I went into art, it would take out the fun and everything. So I didn't want to like, have to constantly draw for clients or paint for clients. Then it changed like where I actually saw my art taking me, I guess, I because when you have a really client driven portfolio in the art world, it can really shape your portfolio into something that you maybe don't want it to be. But after college, I worked in marketing for a little bit. Did digital marketing and then worked in B2B sales for a little bit, and then started printing some clothes just kind of for fun. I was donating to a friend's foster home, and the clothes I printed out 24 shirts. They sold out in like a week, and then I printed out another 30 shirts. Those sold out in another week or two. And then print another 30 shirts, and then those sold. So I was like, all right, I guess people like my art and I can kind of start a business. So I started like a small, like little clothing business. And then it really grew into something when I was on TikTok. So the brand started as a brand called Disorganized Depictions. And I was doing clothing, skateboards, shoes, just a bunch of like art on anything that I could get my hands on that I thought was cool. And then once we were on TikTok, early. So it was nice because the platform wasn't super saturated yet. Get a lot of views. It was like, I remember, it's like 0 to like 2,000 in like a month, which I was like, oh, that's solid. Like on Instagram, it took us years to get to a couple thousand,
Yeah.
and then one of our videos went viral. And then I woke up the next morning, we had like 15,000. I was like, whoa, crazy. And then people were ordering our clothes from kind of like all over the world, which is kind of cool. So we sold them in a handful of countries. And then someone asked me to paint a mural. And then one thing led to another. And then I fell in love with street art, and then realized that I was kind of strong on the business side. Noticed that artists weren't, a lot of artists, they don't have like left and right brain thinking. They're more like creative, not super mathematical,
Yeah.
and logical, I guess. So I found that I had a good balance of both, and I realized like, I'm pretty good at selling artwork. I could probably do it for other people and help other people out. So started doing it with some friends, and yeah, here we are. Now it's like, I do it for 15 other artists. They're all, at this point, a lot of them are good friends of mine. They're incredible, like way more talented than me. Just, I'm just good at the business side. So I just connect them with jobs and stuff. But man, the work it's badass. The team's solid. I'm like really stoked on the people that I get to work with. It's like, I take a lot of pride in the artists I work with. I'm even having a couple of them like commission some pieces for my apartment this year. So yeah, love my artists. But yeah, it's a cool thing. It's a cool job. I really enjoy my job.
Yeah. What kind of designs were you doing on like your t-shirts then? You said people were buying it like all over the world. So like, were you like packaging these yourself, or was it
At the beginning?
at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the beginning, yeah. So for anyone that's in clothing, or like looking to get into clothing, there's different methods to put art onto, let's say like, for example, a t-shirt. So you have screen printing, which is basically where a printer takes multiple screens, and each screen, they print one color. So the more colors you have, the more expensive it is. But screen printing is really high quality. So like the ink it'll take a long time for that ink to peel off.
Yeah.
Whereas there's direct to garment. So direct to garment is where they take like a big printer. They basically run a garment underneath the printer, and the printer prints out everything. And then there's something called dye sublimation, which is where they actually dye the fabric, but it has to be a light colored fabric, because obviously you can't like dye like a black shirt,
Yeah.
So at first I was going through kind of just screen printing and dye sublimation. I'd package things myself and then ship them. And then I learned that there's direct to garment, where people can just print right on the shirt. And then there's something called drop shipping. And drop shipping is basically where they'll manufacture your product, and then they'll ship it directly to your consumer.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do the shipping anymore, right? So it keeps it really automated, which is really nice as a business owner, because as you know, when you're at the beginning stages of things, you're wearing all these hats. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the operations, you're doing the sales, you're still learning about, legal stuff and finances. There's so much to it, So the way I saw it is, at that point I was like, it's going to save me a lot of time. I'm not going to make as much money per shirt, but now all I could focus on is making TikTok videos, and the more videos I make, the more we'll sell. And it was, so I would just make a bunch of videos. People would order from the site. My manufacturer would print it, and then they'd ship it straight to them. So eventually, when I learned what direct to garment drop shipping was, I was like, okay, the quality of clothing isn't going to be the same as screen printing.
Yeah.
But to sacrifice a little bit of quality, to automate my job, and to save me time and help me actually scale the business, I was like, it's for sure worth it. And I would just get samples before I like sold things to customers, to make sure that the quality was good. You definitely want to check your quality before you're just sending it out. You don't want to just like send out a shirt, and then your customer gets in like, yo, this looks horrible. Like the ink doesn't look right. So I would get samples, and then if I like the samples, I'd start advertising on the website, do shoots with like my friends, or like every so often I'd hire like I guess I wouldn't hire, I would just like ask an influencer if they would like take photos in our stuff. I'd be like, we'll hook you up with whatever you like. If you like the clothing,
Yeah.
just take some photos, shout us out, and then yeah, kind of that was the clothing world when I was in it. It was only for maybe a year or two. We still sell clothing on our website, but it's like we'll get an order here and there, and it's like cool, like passive income because I'm not doing anything, that I just
Yeah.
print it and ship it. But at this point, it's like I'm not focused on that. We're focused on painting murals. It's just a much more bold way to make a statement, and it's also just it's really fulfilling and
Yeah.
cool. And I love murals. I just like I've fallen in love with like the mural world and street art world.
Yeah. How was like your first commission? Like, how did that ended up happening?
Mural commission or just commission in general?
Mural commission. Yeah.
Yeah. So first mural was I was approached by this guy named Ronnie, who was up in Long Beach. Shout out Ronnie. I appreciate you, man. But Ronnie, he so I ended up moving I lived here in San Diego, moved to Orange County. When I was in Orange County, I didn't know much about the art scene there because I was like kind of starting down here when
Yeah.
I first started clothing and stuff. And then I saw this street fair in Long Beach. There's like a bunch of artists and stuff and people selling clothing, skateboards, like everything, which was really cool, and like canvases and like wood panels. So I was walking around and just like asked someone like, yo, how do you guys get into the show? And then they're like, you got to connect with Ronnie. He's a cool guy. Connected with Ronnie, was in the show for like a few weeks. And then he was like, yo, he saw a digital piece that I did and I just uploaded it on my Instagram. He was like, yo, can you paint this? And I was like, yeah, I could paint it. I was like, what do you want? And then he was like, we're looking to do it in our bathroom. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, I have a bathroom, like a bathroom that I want you to paint it in. So him and Ashley, who also helped him with the street fairs. Ashley's awesome, super talented designer and very organized. But Ashley photoshopped my design in the bathroom. So it was like it was a woman and she's blowing bubbles, and the bubbles turned into like smiley faces. Because at the time I was like, all my art was smiley. It had something to do with smiley faces. They're always like integrated in the piece. And they put the woman on one corner of the bathroom. She's like blowing out the bubbles, and then the bubbles like go all like wrapped the whole room. So it'd be on like on all the four walls. So I was like, damn, that's cool. I was like, yeah, that looks sick. I would love to do it, but I was like, but I've never painted mural before. And he was like, it's all good. You can do it. And I was like, all right, I'll try. So I just started watching a bunch of videos and like reading some books and stuff and trying to learn how it all worked. And then took a projector up, and once I saw it like projected onto like the bathroom, we projected it through the mirror so it like reflected back. And I was just like, whoa, this is gonna be sick.
Yeah.
So I tackled it. They were like, we're trying to get it done by like the next street walk or the next art walk, excuse me. And it was like 3 days or something. I was like, it's a lot of work for 3 days. I was pulling like 14 to like 16-hour days sometimes, like just in a woman's restroom, like crazy. But yeah.
How big was the bathroom? Like, how many square feet? I'm just curious. I'm trying to like visualize it.
20.
Dude, this room is like 450. So was it like half of this, or?
You said this room's 450?
Yeah.
It was probably about this. It was probably about the same size.
Oh dang.
Yeah. So there's a lot to tackle in 3 days. Like
Yeah.
I haven't even painted anything that I don't think I've ever painted anything that fast. I think it was 4 days, but I don't think I've painted walls that quickly in 4 days ever again. But given it was my first mural, and it was cool. That once I painted it and we uploaded that on TikTok, that went viral too. It was like that's one of my most viewed videos at like 500,000 views or something like that. And I was like, whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
That was like also kind of affirmation for me. That's like, maybe you should paint more murals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Like, so you just moved to like Orange County, and then you just met this guy through word of mouth. Like, how long was that? Was that like a week or two after you had moved, or?
So at this point, I was already pretty invested in the art world, I was like, this is cool. I told myself I didn't want to do this, but I actually really enjoyed doing this. And I probably got into the art fair after maybe a month of being there. And then from there, like, I think it was another month or two, and then he reached out. But I was really big on, I've always been really big on networking. So like when even here down in San Diego, when I first had my design, I just I just would go to art shows and ask people, how did you get into the art show? I'd go into galleries and be like, hey, how do I get into a gallery? And like, you know, at that time, I'm like just barely starting to have like sketchbooks, like not even paintings or anything, you know, me talking to these like fancy ass, like highbrow galleries that are like, oh yeah, you just gotta like keep practicing. And like, I'm like, it's funny just like having those conversations, but every conversation I had was really insightful. So yeah, but probably it was like 2 or 3 months after I moved up to Orange County, but I did a lot of, you know, shake a lot of hands and try to learn as much as I can everywhere I go, so can do cooler and cooler things each year. It's like I never expected, like if you told me back then that I would be managing like projects for 15 different artists across California, I'd be like, what the fuck? Am I allowed to cuss on the podcast?
Oh no, it's cool, bro.
Okay.
It's fine.
Maybe bleep it out or whatever. But I was like,
Nah,
yeah,
chill.
it's like, yeah, I don't know. Never saw myself here, but you know, if you meet the right people and you know, like remain a student, your life can take you anywhere and stay consistent. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
Really
Is
grateful.
there a specific reason why you moved to Orange County, or?
Save money, pour my money back into the business. So my dad's lives in Orange County, so I was like, I'm just gonna move home. I'm gonna save money on rent and pour all that money back into the business. You know, was humbling. I had my own place for you know, a number of years, and I was like, all right. But I'm stoked I did it. Now I'm like in the nicest place I've ever lived in, so I'm like, it's working. Something's
Yeah.
working. And like, you know, I'm able to pay out our artists like pretty well too when we're on projects. Like I pay them all really fairly. Sometimes way more than fairly. You know, sometimes we close big deals and I'm like, yo, got a big check for you. You want
Yeah,
it?
that's crazy.
Yes, it's cool. Yeah, I'm grateful. Yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah. So, is there any like other things like you want to do, or like what's like the biggest building you've done? Because I don't know much about like mural painting and stuff, so I've seen like people with like the big ass ladders and shit, but other than that, like I don't really know much. Like, what goes into even trying to like, I guess, quote that out to people? You guys just do it by like square feet, or?
Yeah, so a big portion of it is by square footage. It's dependent on like the wall material too. So like, you know, drywall is like really easy to paint on. It's just a flat surface. But if we're painting on like metal and it's like corrugated, or if we're painting on, let me think, like brick, raw brick is really annoying to paint on. So you want to like slap on extra fees for when you're painting on tough textures, but it's usually based on square footage and also how many years of experience you have painting, like how strong your artwork actually is, like how clean your execution is. The cleaner your execution is, the more you can charge, you know? So, you know, we have some artists on the team that like, you know, like Steve Martinez, one of my favorite artists that I work with. He's also just like my art uncle. I've known him since I started painting murals. Super cool guy. Steve, he's worked with Apple. He's worked with Lululemon. He worked with us on a big tech brand named Accenture. He could charge a lot for his work because he's worked with all those brands. You know, he's got the clout, you know, and his work's super good. It's like, it's all hyper realism, you know? So like you take a photo, he can like replicate that photo.
Dang.
Like incredible. And then he like adds his own design elements that are like very much stylized. Like you could tell if you see Steve's work, you know, it's Steve's work, you know, like it's very clearly distinguishable. So he can charge a lot, you know, whereas like if you're just starting painting murals, you're not going to be able to charge that much. You know, you're like brand new to the game. You got to kind of, you know, put in the work and learn, you know, like when I when I first started, I was only charging $10 to $20 per square foot. And then, but I know artists that charge like upwards of $100 per square foot, like some of these guys are selling walls for like 350K, man.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah. Wild. Like,
That's a lot.
yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. So like, but I mean, those are like usually like skyscrapers or things like that. But like some of these people in the mural world make lots of money, lots of money. Yeah. I won't mention any names, but this guy that I first was like working with when I first started the collective, he accidentally sent me this like spreadsheet with like his clients and like how much they paid him. Like, because I asked him to send me photos of his work so we could like share it on our page and like share it in our presentations and stuff. And he accidentally attached that to like all the other files. And that's when I saw that like he was selling some of his pieces for like 350K, like 400K. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I remember like when I saw that, because at that time, I think the most I had personally sold a mural for was like 3,000 or 4,000, which was like crazy. Like now even thinking back, I'm like, I can't believe I was selling murals for like that cheap. There's a lot of work. Murals are a lot of work. So, but like seeing those numbers, I was like, wow, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money in murals. And like, for me, it's never really been about the money, but like you need money to scale and to like do cool projects, and obviously like live. But for me, it's always been like about helping artists. So like our whole mission as a company is to empower artists and eliminate the starving artist mentality, and then give back to youth. So we work with like a lot of schools. We go to a school, we paint a mural, and then we teach students how to paint murals. We teach them about not just art, but we teach them about business as well. And yeah, so it's never been about the money for me, but like it was still really crazy to see that you can make that much, and I was like, damn, like if we were making that much money per mural, like we could build out something super cool. Like we could work with a lot of cool artists. We could do, like courses, and, I want to do a podcast eventually too. But I'm like, dude, there's a lot of money in the arts. And I feel like, especially in our generation, we're raised with like, you can't make money in art, but that's all changed. It's all changed. There's so much money in art now. You just got to find where you fit kind of in that puzzle, right?
Or even just finding like the right clients. Cause I think that's a mentality shift that I've had to do like over the past time. Cause like, getting paid like 3 or like 4,000 for like to do art is like cool. But at the same time, like if you want to build something, like you have to charge more. And sometimes like those kind of clients aren't going to get you to where you want to be. And that's kind of where like I listen a lot to what like Chris Doe says
the future.
He just says like your clients are going to reflect where you want to be.
Facts.
And that's what like I'm trying to like scale back from doing like a bunch of other stuff, even though there's like that creative itch. Where like clients will allow you to do whatever you want. But sometimes like if you only focus on that, you're not going to get to where you want to be. Yeah,
definitely. Chris Doe, dude, he's a goat. He has this term, and we use a similar term in the art in how I preach to artists too. You have to have a minimum, right? For him, it's a minimum level of engagement. Yeah. So he has his MLE, right? So your minimum level of engagement is essentially saying like, we only work. This is our minimum amount. If we're not going to make this much from working with the client, then we're not going to work with the client, right? And it's a lot of artists have a hard time doing that, but like you have to realize like this is how I see it. It's just a numbers game. It's a numbers game of how many people can how many people can you reach within a certain amount of time, right? And you have to get no's to find the yes. If you're just going to say yes to everything, you're going to do a lot of really cheap jobs. So like, for example, when we get on a call with someone, if we're going to work with someone, we work mainly with schools, right? So if we're going to work with a school, I ask them, like, first question I usually ask is, why are you on the call with me, to get an idea of like what they're looking for. And then I say, okay, cool. I reiterate whatever they said to me to show that I'm listening. And then I say, so we have a minimum of $10,000. Is that something that you're willing to spend on a project like this? And I ask it as soon as possible, right? If you, I don't want to waste an hour of my time building out, like having a phone call just to find out they have $1,000, and I'm like, all right, well, we're not going to work together. I just wasted an hour of my time, right?
Yeah.
It's a numbers game, so you have to get on the call. You have to ask them if they have that amount. If they don't have the amount that you're looking for, like that's your minimum, you have two options. You have the option of saying, okay, well, if you only, like our minimum's 10,000, right? So let's say they have 5,000. I say, okay, so if we do a $5,000 project with you, which we typically, like I said, charge 10,000. We just need to be guaranteed that there's going to be more jobs in the future. So is there a way that we can break down the package into multiple packages, right? So let's do a $5,000 wall here and a $5,000 wall in like 2 months or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or the other option is to just say, okay, well, we can't do it for that price, but I can refer you to someone that can, right?
Yeah.
Or I can try my best to help you find someone that can. And that establishes trust in the client too, because maybe the client doesn't have the money now, but maybe the client comes back to you in a year from now and they're like, hey, thanks so much for connecting me to that artist last year. They did a great job, but I'm looking for something from you guys now. And now we have the budget to do it, right? So you being able to actually say no and refer a client to someone else will still win you points in their eyes, because you're kind of establishing trust. You're showing that you actually care. You're not just saying no.
Yeah.
You're too cheap. Like you don't want you don't want to be pretentious, you want to offer value however you can, even if it means you can't work with them. But yeah, it's really important that to make money you stick to your minimums and you don't undersell. And I know that's really hard for a lot of artists to hear, but it's more of a mindset shift in the individual person, which is like changing your relationship with money, understanding that cheap and expensive are relative terms, right? Like expensive to one person is not expensive to another person. Cheap to one person isn't cheap to another person, right? Like I used to think that $10,000 was a lot of money, and now I don't think that $10,000 is that much money. I remember like wanting to get to a point where it's like, it'd be so cool to make six figures. Then you really start to realize like money it's just there's a different value to it now. Like $1 million could be spent very quickly.
Yeah.
Like $1 million could be spent very quickly in the right business, So it's like it's all relative, right? Like numbers are all relative. So if you're gonna say that $1,000 is expensive to you, then it will be.
Yeah.
Right. But if you say that's inexpensive, like you have to change your own relationship with money to be able to start selling these higher packages. And I think especially at the beginning, artists have a hard time saying those numbers. But, the more you say them, the more you talk about money, the more comfortable you get saying those numbers, the more comfortable you get with money. If you close multiple $5,000 deals, it's easier to make the jump to $7,000 because you're like, okay, well, we still work for $5,000 a bunch of times. Now I can make it to $7,000.
Yeah.
Like, keep raising your minimums and keep pushing. Like, you never know. Like sometimes I have something that I always preach, which is when you're working with a client, I don't know if you've done this with videography, but when you work with a client, we give them 3 prices. So you give them like the lower end price, mid-tier price, high end price. When you give them 3 prices, it's less likely that they're going to negotiate. Because if you just give them one price, you guys are
going to negotiate.
I'm sorry.
You're good. Don't worry about it.
If you give them one price, people are going to negotiate around that one number. So if you give them 3 prices, it feels like they have different options. And then it's less of like a negotiation. They're not going to ask you to change every individual number, right? They're just going to choose the one that's best fitting. And each number should obviously entail a different amount of work. The higher end number meaning more work. But like how we kind of structure things is usually based the low tier price at our minimum. Then we throw out a really high price and just see if they bite. And we've been lucky enough to say that a lot of clients have bitten at some of our bigger projects, and it's helped me personally get really comfortable with pitching big numbers.
Yeah.
Well, big relative to me, right? But it's helped me get comfortable pitching those big numbers because before even saying 10,000 now, like if me thinking about selling a wall for $10,000, like, 2 years ago would be crazy. Like I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. That's a lot of money. And now it's like, that's our minimum now. So it's kind of just changing your relationship with money and having the conversations about money a lot, like
Yeah.
just getting on calls a lot, pitching a lot. The more you pitch, the more comfortable you're gonna get with it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go on a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. All right, guys. So we are back, and yeah, I guess you could go ahead and ask me the question that you wanted. I'm pretty like blunt with the podcast, so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was, I wanted to flip the script because we're really big on educating artists, and we really want to start our own podcast, that offers values to artists specifically. If I specifically muralists at the beginning, we'll probably go into other things in the future, but I want to bring on different muralists that I've worked with, like other muralists in general that I think just have a lot of insight. And I'm sure a lot of your viewers or listeners are also probably interested in, starting a podcast. So I just wanted to ask what your journey was like, starting this. I know you've been in this studio now for a few months, and I know you already have experience with video, photo, audio, but I'd love to hear what your tips are for someone who's looking to start a podcast, because I would love to do so myself,
Yeah. So I mean, again, it like depends on the type, because I do know a lot of people do like the calls on Zoom. Those are pretty informational, but I think it also like depends on your personality. For me, I like meeting people in person, and so sometimes like I've like driven out and stuff to like meet people, but sometimes if it's much preferably if I bring people in. But I actually learned podcasting from some of like my mentors. So like I used to work for a music producer, and his name is like Curtis King. And he had like a podcast. He started a podcast and it started gaining momentum. And that was just one avenue for him to bring in potential like clients. And because music producers sometimes he had like a mentoring program, and he built like a course for that. So the podcast kind of like was like a funnel towards that.
Yeah.
For me, the main reason I started this podcast here is because it's just because of the space. And like, I mean, I do have some like religious background, so like I'm a Christian, and I think giving to people, like even the name of the studio, it's Ex Nihilo Studio, which means creation out of nothing.
Cool.
So like whoever comes through this building, if they want to learn, at some point we have to learn the business side of stuff. And so these conversations is kind of like what I want people to like learn, because as artists, like you were mentioning earlier, like even for me, like I used to get super excited like when I had like $300, $500 like music videos, but now like I only take on a project like that if I really want to do it myself and I express myself creatively. But other than that, that's why like I'm switching over to doing things differently and trying to work with brands. But the podcast, like this microphone will run you like 350. That one will run you 350, but it really depends on what kind of mic you get. So this is condenser. No, condenser mic is like a lot the bigger ones. This is a dynamic mic. The good thing about these ones is that like if like there's an airplane kind of flying around, a condenser mic would pick that up a lot more than a dynamic mic, because you need a lot more juice to be able to capture things. So that's when this one's better. And then this is a Rode Procaster 2.
Yeah, talk to me about that. Like what is that, and like, and how do, like what is that doing? So I to have a podcast, do you have to really understand how like sound engineering works?
No, so this one makes it really easy. This is just a plug and play. So like the only thing you have to just adjust is just the faders. But other than that, like this one was made specifically for like different kinds of mics. So it has presets depending on the mic that you buy. So for this one, it already has a preset, so you don't have to know a lot about like the audio engineering. Most of the time, honestly, I just bought it so like I don't have to do like mixing afterwards. So all I do is I just turn up the volume and that's it.
Got it.
And the rest of it, honestly, like the main reason I have it right now through GarageBand is because there's a app that my friend told me about recently, and it's called like Autopod or something like that. So it'll do like the jump cuts for you, but you have to have everything like in a multi-track. So this has to be one audio source by itself, and that has to be one audio source by itself.
I see.
The AI is gonna know where to cut based on that. But if it was all in just one track, so wherever you're saying or whatever I'm saying is coming out through one channel, it's not gonna be able to tell who's who or where to cut, because they're telling the audio from B and camera B is the
Yeah.
same. So it's going to be able
Yeah.
to cut that. From A to A is this other one. So it's going to be able to cut that. So this is my first time testing it like this. But
How long did
the
it take you just to learn about all this stuff? Like just as far as
honestly,
like the editing the audio goes, like did it take you a few months? Were you doing this before before you were doing the podcast? Were you learning about all this audio stuff, or was it like kind
a
of
little bit, but honestly, you could learn everything like an hour, like 3 hours, I would say. And then you just have to get like comfortable with like just not worrying too much about the stuff that it's just like working as you're doing it.
yeah.
But it's not like super difficult. The
Oh,
hardest thing, honestly, is just like having someone to do it. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
That's probably the hardest part. The gear is probably the easiest part.
How much time does it take you when you're done filming a podcast to edit the podcast?
When I was doing it myself, so I don't like re-listening to things over and over again. So
Yep.
like I would like drag it out. Like I'm like watching shows trying to edit, but a regular edit for just like a YouTube video would take me like an hour to 3
Okay.
hours. And then if I was proactive enough and I wrote down every single time or every minute that like I thought a conversation was interesting and figured out how to do those as reels. So then I would have like 1 minute of reels and then just writing down from this point to this point, this conversation was interesting. If you were doing that along the first edit, then when you came back and edited it again for reels, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But it's all just like figuring out like a system and stuff.
Yeah. So you said at this point you have someone that edits the podcast for you
Yes.
now, right? So do you think that it's important? I think this is something good that we should touch on, like both of us maybe. Do you think that it's important that before you take someone on the team that you learn how to do it first so you can
Yeah.
give
Oh,
them
yeah.
better instruction?
Definitely. Yeah, because I mean, otherwise, like, I don't know, like, if someone gives you like mid-level work, you're just like, what the hell, you know? But yeah, I mean, yeah, you should learn how to do some of it at least. But I don't know, maybe not so much for podcasts, because I think for podcasts, audio is probably the most important part. So as long as that sounds good, and I mean, you even have AI now
Yeah.
that can like make iPhone stuff sound good. So
Yeah. I mean, the AI technology is crazy. I think that, I feel like a lot of artists, especially in the early stages, some even that have careers, I feel like a lot of artists get locked into this mentality that you kind of have to work alone a lot. So that's why I think it's kind of cool hearing you talk about, that you have someone else that does some of the edits for you now after you've learned. Because I think that building teams is like, it makes your company or your mission like just so much more than just based around you. It's like
Yeah.
you're really building a little community that cares about the same things that you do. And I think that as we've grown, working with more people gives also you more of a sense of responsibility. And it's cool like teaching someone things and watching them perfect it. And I think because we have interns that do our social media, and then we have a virtual assistant that helps me with emails, so like getting clients, and then I usually handle the sales calls. Then we have the artists that kind of facilitate the work. Sometimes I paint too, but yeah, it's kind of like understanding that, especially in the art world, like don't just make it all about you. Make it about helping other people, and don't be scared of bringing people on to help you. I think it's daunting to wear all the hats that you have to wear, especially at the beginning, so I think having the right people in place. I've been obsessed with this quote as I've like been listening to it more, and as our business has been scaling. But it was a quote. I think it was in a podcast. Have you heard of the podcast Diary of a CEO?
no.
You should check it out. It's a
have to
really
check
good
it out.
podcast. I think it's Stephen Bartlett is his name, and he's this entrepreneur in Britain. Started a lot of, I think he's invested in like 9 different companies now, but he's really big. He has a lot of interviews with people like Alex Hormozy, who's really big in like the fitness industry. You'd probably recognize him if you saw. Do you know Alex Hormozy? You probably recognize him if you saw him. He always wears a hat. He has like long hair, super like yoked.
Wait, is it the TikTok guy?
Probably.
Oh God, he's funny.
He looks kind of like rough on the edges.
Yeah, he has like
But
super long hair.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's Alex Hormozy. He interviews him. He interviews like Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank, Simon Sinek, like a bunch of really big names, like the founder of Gymshark, the founder of Five Guys Burgers. But anyways, Alex Hormozy says on that podcast, he's him and Steven are talking, and Steven says, at every company's core, a company is really just a recruiting company. Like you're only as good as the people that you work with, right? You're only as good as the people that you work with and the tools that you use. So if you're using like archaic tools and just bringing on people that, if you're always the smartest person in the room, then, your company's only going to go as far as you go, right? You need to you need to introduce new tools and introduce new people into your team that can help you build, and sometimes like you have to lead others. Like sometimes people have to learn from you. Like, I have to teach my interns a lot about social media, about design, like making sure that everything looks nice and crisp and where to move things. Teaching them more about copywriting, like why this caption might not perform as well as this caption.
Yeah.
Like photo edits and stuff like that. But really understanding that, if you want to take your art or your business or whatever you're doing and do something really influential with it, you have to have a team. And ideally you have to have a team that, where people can fit in that have more expertise than you in certain areas. Like Influential Walls wouldn't be where it was if it was just me painting. Like we are where we are because the artists we work with are sick. They're just so good, like they're really good. And like, luckily I have the sales and marketing side, but I for sure plan to have someone else take over marketing when I find the right person that's like going to understand how to market in the mural world more effectively than I can.
Yeah.
I'm pretty content with where we're at right now, but still, I don't know what the right word is to say. I guess I should say I'm happy, but I'm unsatisfied. Like having that sense of always needing to grow.
Yeah, you have to always have like that potentiality and trying to increase that. Otherwise, like anyone that's an entrepreneur doesn't want to stay where they're at currently.
I don't think anyone wants to stay where they're at. I think entrepreneur are not like another thing that I heard Tom Bilyeu said, who founded Quest bars, like the protein bars. He said something, I probably won't get the quote exactly right, but he said something along the lines of like humans have the innate function, like as a species, to adapt and grow. Like that's what we're built for, is to adapt and grow. We're the only species that can like learn and change the face of the world. Like, there's buildings everywhere and like streets and like boats and planes. Like what the hell? Like no other animals doing that, right? So it's like, I think instinctively we all want to like grow and do cool things. I just think that a lot of people get really comfortable and but having, I think really having a fulfilling life is understanding that happiness exists in the current moment, but still being dissatisfied with yourself enough to continually want to grow.
Yeah.
So you're like, you're always happy, but you're always doing things to push you, learning new things, and trying to live up to your fullest potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To take it back to what you mentioned about like getting interns and stuff, I think one person wanted to like kind of like work for me, and when she ended up coming in, like I realized like I was doing too much, and so it helped me grow in that sense. To be like, man, like I need to zero down on one thing, because I can't be wasting her time. Or like sometimes there's people that come and help me with projects. I'm like, man, like I need to make something out of this, because like I can't be wasting their time. Like I need to like reward these people with like, of course, like you could do a bunch of different things, but I just automatically go to like the monetary. But Yeah, that definitely helped me grow a lot. Just realizing that like I was doing too much and that I just need to focus like on one thing for
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I mean, it just helps having a team, and like you said, kind of giving your people incentive. Like when when we're about to hire a new intern or like bring anyone on, I always ask them what they want.
Hmm.
Like we know what we need as an organization, right? Like you know what you need in terms of like what sort of help you need, but you need to make it about what that person wants to learn. And then
Hmm.
if you can even help them learn that, right? Because I will know immediately if someone's not a good fit if they're like, I want to learn how to code a website specifically um, for like artists.
Hmm.
Like I've know nothing about coding. Like
Yeah.
I can't teach you that, right? If you tell me like, hey, I want to learn how to manage, like our interns or social media, they're like, I want to learn how to manage an Instagram account, learn how to grow it, or like learn how to collect leads on LinkedIn. Those are things that I can teach you because I've done it. Like I've done it myself, so I'll
Yeah.
bring you on and help you how I can. But it's really understanding that, you know, asking someone what they want and making sure that it fits the goals that you want to meet. Like your goals need to be aligned, and also understanding that culture is a big thing too,
Yeah.
because you know, a lot of really successful entrepreneurs will say hire for culture, not for skill set, because you can kind of teach a skill set. You can learn a skill set pretty easily. But you can't teach someone how to have integrity. You can't teach someone how to it's hard to teach someone how to like resolve conflict really well, right? Like those are kind of things that someone has to have, like character traits someone has to have, and those to me are significantly more important than skills, because anyone can learn a skill, anyone can watch a YouTube video or read a book and then know how to do something, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone is going to act with integrity and or be
Yeah.
hardworking and disciplined, like so those are things, especially when hiring you need to look for, like understanding that the culture is more important than the skills. Anyone can learn the skills.
Yeah. Is there any like last final thoughts or things you would want to tell people that are like aspiring to do like murals or sell t-shirts?
Yeah. If you want to get into the mural world, I think that like obviously you need to understand art really well, like be consistent until you find a strong style, or and your skills are strong enough to um, to be something that you're proud of, but more so learn about business. Like don't just limit yourself to learning about arts, because you can, something I always say is you can be a talented artist, but it's not going to make you a successful artist.
Yeah.
So a big thing that I always want people to take away is understand that even if you're a talented artist, you need to understand how marketing and sales work. That will drive your business. So I would say, yeah, in closing, that's always what I preach is learn about the business. Don't just limit yourself to learning about art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for the podcast. I appreciate you so much coming through,
Yeah.
and yeah, we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.